Hi guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join us today. We are up at the cottage this weekend. It has been quite some time since we've been in the cottage garden. In fact, I actually haven't visited in over a month, which I usually come every other week or so. So it's been a while, mostly because if you've seen my latest videos, you know that I am moving. Well, in fact, I've moved is more accurate to say. And we have left the city garden and are starting a new adventure at what I think I'm probably going to call the home garden, which is where I live. I call this the cottage garden if you are new here, because it is our family's cottage that my parents now live and have retired to. So really it's my parents' garden, but for the last 15 years or so, this place has always been the cottage. So it will always be the cottage to me. And this garden is one that my dad and I have kind of built together. My dad has done the bulk of it by and large. He loves to garden, it's where I got my love of gardening from as well. And we've documented it the last couple of years as I've had this channel in place, just kind of showing the adventures. And I'm really excited to get to do that now in our new home garden. But today we're at the cottage. And it has been quite some time since we did a garden tour. In fact, I don't know if I've done one since August. I think I kind of skipped over September because I was only really up here for Labor Day. So I should have made one then, and I just really didn't get to. And things have drastically changed since our last garden tour because it is now fall. It is early October. I don't know when exactly you're going to see this because I am a bit behind in my video making. But you'll get to see everything that I've documented in time. Just know it might happen a week or two after it was filmed, or longer in some cases. I don't want to miss the opportunity to show you what our cottage garden is looking like now at the beginning of October. We are in West Michigan. We are in zone 6 here. If you're familiar with Michigan's growing climates at all, you might know that Lake Michigan is really large, one of the largest fresh bodies of water in the world. And it has a tempering effect in terms of the weather we experience, and which affects our growing zones. So though my parents are not on Lake Michigan, they are within a mile or two of Lake Michigan. And that means even though they're pretty far north, they're only a zone 6. Their last frost date could be any time now. They really don't have technically, I think that their first known frost date has already passed. They haven't had a frost yet, though you might notice I am wearing layers because it did cool down this weekend. It had been in the 70s and gorgeous, so now it's about 50 and fall is coming. You'll be able to see the fall color is just starting, but there's still some things looking really good. So all that being said, let's dive in and just take a walk around the garden as I point out things of beauty that catch my eye. I'm sorry for all the dogs that are barking. They are annoyed that I'm not inside with them right now. Let's start with this bed up here, and you might notice the light is a little odd right now. We've been experiencing rain and sun. There's been a number of rainbows. Maybe I'll insert a picture of one I took this morning. It's not supposed to rain for the next several hours, but I think there's still some water coming off the trees or a cloud here and there. So the light's a little odd, but things are looking good, including this quick fire hydrangea standard. Now, if you saw the last garden tour we did in the city garden before I moved, I have one of these there. And you might notice that it has a much different, this one, growing habit than that one did. It was my one in the city garden was a lot more compact. They were planted at exactly the same time. And I think this one is down to 2 things. One, this one probably didn't get cut back quite as vigorously as mine did in the city garden. And this one gets a lot more water. So, though less sun. So even though mine, you'll note there's kind of a weird little gap right here, and it affects the shape. That's, I think, because of the shade from this tree. We actually trimmed it up not all that long ago, so it should be getting some more sun now. And next spring, we're going to give it a much more compact prune to try and encourage it to put on more blooms and develop a stronger support system within. But I pointed it out in the city garden. I'm going to point it out here. I absolutely love the quick fire color in the fall. Normally I'm more drawn to like the paniculata type of flower heads. This is almost mop-like. It's not quite, but where it's got the little tight buds and then the couple flowers here and there. But there's something special about this, especially in the fall. You'll note that there's a carpet of leaves. It has started, but it's letting us see some things quite well, which I think is good. We have, oh, I think that's a dahlia. Interesting. We've got some red rover heucherellas. 1, 2, 3 that we planted last year that are doing really well. They're not quite as like purpley as I thought they would be, but I think that's because they're not getting quite as much sun as they would like. I'm really pleased to see that this rhododendron appears to have a couple of buds. We didn't get a single flower on it last year, and we weren't quite sure why. I did some research, and I read that rhododendrons actually set their buds the year before. So if something happened to it the year before, that might have affected it now, which could have happened with this. I don't remember how many years this has been in place. Probably 3. And the year before, this almost completely defoliated because it had really bad winter burn. So maybe that affected its bloom cycle. Either way, it's a really pretty yellow rhododendron that doesn't get too big. I think it gets 2 by 3. So it'll fill this space admirably. You'll note, if you are a frequent follower, these are from the city garden. They've almost been completely neglected since I took them out probably about a month and a half ago, but they're still going strong, including these geraniums are just shining right now. I actually really like them here, though it's getting colder, so we probably won't see many blooms left. In here, I did want to point out a couple things. There's a lot of green right now, not a lot blooming. We could probably amp up our fall interest. I'm thinking toad lilies, as I also often am, but I wanted to point out this and this. These are incredible hydrangeas we planted last year, and earlier this year, a deer got in here and ate many things, including, these hostas that have put on a couple small leaves, but they also ate these back quite badly. And they've made a full recovery. Hopefully next year we'll be able to keep them out and they won't cost us more flowers. But I didn't want to point that out. And I wanted to point out the nice textural difference we have in leaves here. We've got like the hosta leaves with a bit of yellow. Really pretty hellebore leaves like here and there. This is a Nycanthus. And it's looking quite lush. It's never bloomed, but its prehistoric leaves provide something that's kind of interesting, especially when you superimpose it against all of the fern we have in this area and the beautiful blue spruce lollipop tree that is actually in need of a little pruning, but is looking so good. There's not a lot else of note in this area, but we will pop along as we make our way around the house and look at it from another angle. Though I actually think what we'll probably do is walk around the other side and make our way that way. I do want to quickly point out the fall colors starting in the woods. So my parents live on the edge of a national forest, and you can see it's got a lot of beautiful hardwoods, and there's just a bit here and there, but that tree, I always love, it goes first and provides a brilliant red beacon. And if you look up, you can see a couple bits here and there joining the fray, which is beautiful. I mentioned toad lilies earlier. If you are not familiar with them, these right here are toad lilies. They are one of my favorite shade plants that I think are really underrated. In the fall, they put out this gorgeous little orchid-like flower with these spots. This one happens to be variegated, which is pretty. And they are highly deer resistant. This whole bed, you might have noticed we have a lot of deer fencing. You can kind of just see it there. Because we are near that national forest, we have a lot of deer activity. This bed, I actually planted entirely on this channel, and we call it our highly deer resistant shade garden. Doesn't mean they don't eat a couple things now and then, here and there. But in general, they've left it alone, and it's really taken off. I mean, we talked about textural differences. Right here, even though there's some slug damage, you've got the beautiful, look how huge these are, Brennera. I think these are sailor's heart. I love looking at them with the juxtaposition of the ligularia, the astilbe, which is beginning to color up a little bit for fall. Again, some hellebores that are just mammoth, loving their place here. And then we've got lungwort. We've also got a 9-bark here that is dark and growing. I don't know if it'll ever really maintain its base shape. We had to do some pruning on it, but it's all backed by these beautiful ivies, which I like to do the caveat. We come through about once a month and pull them away from the siding. I am due some. As you might see, I haven't been here in a month, so it's time. I'll pop in there later today. But there is some space between the arch and the siding, and we just make sure we pull it back. This wall really needed something here, and we like it for now at least, so it won't be too, it's not too destructive, and it's fairly easy to maintain. And it helped break up this wall beautifully. The toad lilies though. There's one stand there, one stand here, and I think, oh yes, we have an itty bitty baby right there. I did pull some out. I moved from the city garden. I'll link a video here where we talked about that a little bit, but long story short, I did divide almost all the plants I had. A lot of them are actually in a holding area here. A good chunk of them are at my new house, and not many of them are going to get planted this year. They're mostly probably going to get planted next spring, unfortunately. I just don't think I have time, and it's getting later in the year. But I did divide a number of the toad lilies with the intention of putting them in my yard. But I might see if I could divide a couple of them a little bit further and pop a couple here, because we just need to amp up our fall display, and I already have them. They're one of my favorite things. So I just need them everywhere, is long and short of it. Oh, you can see the arch, how it beautifully breaks up that wall and provides a nice green backdrop. You can also see the squash trellis from my house, the other trellises, and all of these containers which need to make their way to the new house now that I have possession. But I did want to point out my holding area, a mishmash of beautiful things. Most of these are going to my house, my new house that is, though there are a couple of things that are staying. There's also this nasty, nasty thistle that I am going to leave for my dad to take care of, because these things aren't lethal, but we do pull them. But there are a couple things in here that are staying at this house. I need to kind of weed through them, find where they are, and get them in the ground. It's actually going to be the video after this one when we start that process. Making our way around, you will see our budlias that we planted. There's one right here. They did flower this year. They put on tremendous growth, and we will give them a nice little prune back in the spring, and I think they'll provide some late summer color. I wish I'd shown them while they were blooming. I also wanted to check in here and show you guys a couple of things. We planted this bed earlier this year for the most part. Elements of it were here last year, but I am just amazed by how things have grown, and the fact that these foxglove have been in bloom all year. Some a little bit, not completely, like they don't look amazing right now, but that looks pretty good all year, really. I mean, they still have pink, there's still bumblebees loving on them, and you can see we have had some cold nights, which has nipped a couple things, but like the Nepeta is doing pretty well. I cannot wait to see this next year. Obviously the marigolds would have to be replanted, and now that I know we're going to do this, I'm probably going to plan for them. But they're looking gorgeous, as are our Japanese anemone, finally bloomed. They can be a bit thug-like, so we have them confined to this bed. And they don't bloom a ton because they get a little bit of sun, but probably not quite as much as they would like. Yeah, we must have had some cold nights because they're a little bruised too. But they provide a pop of cheer here. And you're going to see in a moment, my dad started a path project earlier this year, and this was intended to be finished. He's made great progress, but he actually has also been diverted by my new house because he has been a wonderful father and helping me with so many things. And that means this project's not done. I do think he's actually in England right now visiting his dad, who turned 90 earlier this week. and I am dog sitting the many dogs that I mentioned earlier. But I think when he comes back, he's going to help me build a fence at the new house. And then he's going to finish this project up. But you'll see it's strewn with acorns, though it is making such a difference having this year and not having the same level of dirt, though I know we're all excited for it to be finished. We planted these hellebores earlier this year as well. I got all of these from work. We also planted like some ostrich fern and some other things that all took really well so far. The real test is, do they survive winter? Hopefully they will. But as we walk away around here, a couple other things that are doing so well. Look at this. Another toad lily. This is a different kind. I really like this one. I don't think I have this one at my new house, or I'll have to steal a bit of it. I have one similar. This one isn't quite so spotted, but it's got lovely yellow. And I hope you can see from all the buds, when they're done blooming, they drop. Like here's one that has completely fallen off. This one's on the way out. It'll pop off when it's done, but it's covered in blossoms. They don't really get nipped too hard by frost at this stage, and it will just probably be in bloom for the next 3 weeks. I love it. It's great in flower arrangements too. Other things doing well in here. I do need to come. I can see that this hasn't been pulled away. This is a climbing hydrangea that hasn't bloomed yet. It's been in its place. This is its 3rd year. I really hope it blooms next year. And we have it up on this beautiful old Gothic trellis. This is I think a Jack Frost Brunnera. It's super silver and got a slight iridescent quality to it. I never apparently cut this back. I think it was a late bloomer and it just didn't do it. So maybe that's why it's not quite so as large. I think it's also a little bit newer than the others. But I always like pointing out this bed because it's kind of a little secret, and I love it right now when the toad lilies are backed. We've got these painted Japanese ferns in the front and the toad lilies in the back, and the layering is just pretty. Even though it's obviously a utility area, still make it beautiful. Let's go in here. Have quite a lot of rain come in, even just up to last night, so I am sorry that things have kind of become downtrodden, but I could not be more pleased with how things have taken this year. I was hoping this would be blooming so I can show you. This is a beautiful Princess Alexandra of Kent rose that we are going to be moving probably in the spring. I might move it now. We'll see how it goes. But the dahlias in here, let's see, we got to be able to find one. Yes. This is a Hawaii decorative dahlia. Look at all of that color. It really is like dawn-like, and they're pretty good size, very workable in arrangements, and fairly prolific. These were planted fairly late, and I didn't get a chance to pre-start the tubers. So we got them on like super clearance. We've planted a number of things in here this year. This dahlia doesn't seem to be blooming. I'm trying to remember what that one is. I can't off the top of my head. We've had some iris take really well. This one I do know is a Rebecca. It's World Dahlia. This one's just opening. Very pink, a little thinner leaves, and this one's actually fairly small compared to what they could be. But they're beautiful. We have 2 of these, I think. And what's really interesting is the flowers, depending on how old they are, look quite different. This pink spreads, at least in this experience. So really pleased with this one as well. Here you can see that the deer did also eat up some hostas that have made a recovery. And we actually planted these guys this year, these lavenders. These are Lavender Essence Purple. They seem to have done well this year. I guess the test of time is how long do they last. Here's some beautiful daylilies. I love these. There's 2 daylilies that my parents have that I want to steal a chunk of next year. This one and one over there, which doesn't have any flowers, sadly. But isn't that pretty? I love it. This area, okay. Couple things to point out. I added some Creeping Jenny ground cover that didn't do anything the last couple years, and I was a little like, okay, this is frustrating. You can see it's finally taken off, as has our wisteria. It's making its way. My dad added something for it to cling to. We're hoping eventually it'll work its way up and just kind of fill this with purple flowers. That's the hope. It didn't bloom this year. We're hopeful for next year, though, that it will bloom, because we'd love for this just to be covered with purple flowers in the spring. I do know that they set their buds also in the fall before, which means they might get winter burn, unfortunately. So I'm hoping that's not the case. We've had this bloom here before. It was in a slightly more protected area, but as you can see, it's a little exposed, so it is behind this magnolia that is doing very, very well. What's not doing really well, we have a mini Mauvette hydrangea here behind the dragon that clearly has some iron deficiencies. So I'm going to get that treated with iron tone and add it on a rotation just to kind of pop in and out. We also had in here some dahlias that honestly have done terribly. 1, 2. This is as big as they've gotten all year. It's been a bummer. Hopefully the tubers survive and we can try again in the spring. These were creme de cassis dahlias, which are like a pretty purple. Hopefully next year we're able to save them and have them do something. But this did a lot. This is the poet's wife. It's been blooming all year. In the fall, some of the buds come out and they're very like apricot-y in color. I think that's the cool weather. But it has been the most prolific rose. We planted it bare root this year, and it's just been amazing. As is this. This is a Rebecca Lynn Dahlia, which is beautiful. And actually, we bought this because my brother's partner's name is Rebecca Lynn. And I think this is a beautiful dahlia that I'm really excited about. We will venture down there in a bit, but I did want to just kind of do a walk through here. Things are looking a little beaten down, but you gotta show the good and the bad. And this is actually another area that looking around, I think, ooh, oh, chipmunk, we need some fall interest in here. So I gotta think about what that might be. I also wonder what happened here. This is usually more rounded. I wonder if something came through and ate it. This also looks a bit distressed and iron deficient potentially. Oh well, plenty to do. Made my way down the stone steps. And I wanted to provide some brief updates here. This is a little quick fire hydrangea, non-standard. So I showed you the standard in the front. This is a regular one. It gets, I think, 3 to 4 tall and wide, so it'll just fill this area in quite admirably. This is also the area that we have been battling Houtunia, which is also known as chameleon leaf. We've been spraying it. We have some landscape fabric down, which has actually helped quite a bit. And we think we might plant something in here this fall. We have a rose that needs to get into its final resting place. I had been planning on putting it here. I might put it here because I'm seeing less. I don't know. It could be a mistake. We were thinking we weren't going to plant anything for a whole year, but I do have a rose that is desperate to get out of its pot that is intended to go here. It just would make things a little complicated. Try not to use harsh chemicals too much, and only revert to it when we want to eradicate something. This is tenacious. It's a ground cover that I've talked about extensively. We rue the day we planted it here. Because it is a thug that chokes out most other things. So we've been slowly trying to eradicate it, which means we've been spraying Roundup on it. And we've probably gone through 6 or 7 rounds of Roundup. And how tenacious is it? It's still kicking. So I don't really know if I want to plant something here, knowing that we're going to have to, what that would mean is we sometimes if we have something like this too close to another plant, what my dad will do is put on super thick gloves, get the Roundup on the gloves, and then just like hand do it on the plant so it doesn't get on things it's not intended to. But that's a pain. And I don't know if he told me to plant it, but I don't know. Seems like a lot of work. These though, in this area where we have been eradicating it, we have a mock orange, which has put on a lot of vertical growth this year. We also have 2 bulbo hydrangeas that I was a little worried about because they took so long to get going, and I really missed showing them in their glory, and I'm sorry about that. But you can see that they did eventually put on blooms that we're really excited about. Oh no, I'm feeling rain. We planted 2 here, and we actually always intended to put another one here to complete the swoop. So next year I'll probably keep my eye out. Look at all these acorns, guys. They've just been falling and falling and falling, and they're becoming a bit of a pain. It's getting heavier, and I just checked my weather app, and I think it's supposed to keep up for about 30 minutes. So I'm gonna let it pass, then we shall continue our tour. All right, it is probably about an hour and a half later, and now the sun is out. There are some clouds that still look threatening, but it's, again, not supposed to rain. So hopefully it stays that way for me to finish this tour and get some gardening done. It's a time of year that it's kind of a mixed bag of tricks. You never know when something is exactly going to rain, but I'll take the sun. It feels great. It's a bit chilly. I think the actual temperature is around 51, but the real feel is like 42. I probably should have more layers on, but I'm just not prepared yet. Picking up where we left off, I did want to point out how well these Gertrude Jekyll roses are doing. This one we knew was going to make it, and it's put on some tremendous growth, including new canes. I think it pushed almost entirely new growth from the base, but it's started making its way. We've enjoyed a couple of really beautiful blooms on it. And then this one. This was the one. Oh, I think I have it backwards. This is the one we knew would do well. And it's done really, really well. This is the one that I thought was dead. And I contacted David Austin, who has a guarantee, and they said, well, if there's something wrong, we will replace it. But we really think you need to just give it a little bit more time, because this one, we bought bare root this spring. It did not put on any growth until like July. And they were right. It did recover, and they said if it doesn't make it through the winter, they'll still replace it. But really pleased with that, because we added this arbor earlier this year, and I absolutely love how it ties in with the deck and other parts of the cottage as well. And I can't wait for, I still am up for debate if I want to plant things there yet. But won't it be so pretty when there's roses there? We had such grand plans this year on various revamps we wanted to do in different parts of the garden, and one of them was actually this side of the magnolia, and we just haven't gotten to it yet, mostly because I moved. It's all my fault, but I'm very, very grateful for all the help both my mom and dad gave me as we prepared my house to move, and basically divided almost every plant in the city garden that could be divided that I liked. We'll get to it. It'll probably be next spring at this point. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm thinking we'll probably tackle 1 or 2 of these tasks, but it really depends on the weather, I guess. More likely, you'll get to see next spring how everything does. Some things we did do last fall that I wanted to give you an update on are our iris from Shriner. They're not in flower right now, but we basically only lost 2 of them, and I want to kind of show you how much growth these beasts have put on now that they've been in the ground 1 full year. The echinacea still have some colors beginning to fade. A little more of them look like this than I would really like to admit, but like, look at this guy where the bee is. Still giving the pollinators food and still got some gorgeous color. And it marks where this bed we interspersed coneflowers and iris. So when the iris are up and blooming, the coneflowers are just babies. And then when they just become texture, the coneflowers take over for interest. Now, this is one of the iris we planted, and I do think some of the iris that are here are an older variety. Unfortunately, I wasn't really paying attention, so I'm going to have to... I think this is the new variety, and all these are old. But but then part of me is like, ooh, that was new. So what I think I'm going to do is just pay attention next spring and see what they look like. But that goes to show you, like, this is definitely new. This is definitely new, and this one is one of the ones we had died out when we bought a rhizome, And it definitely took, which is exciting. I can't wait to see this one next spring. We planted some coreopsis last fall as well. We planted 3 of them, and one of them is right there, and it's very small and not looking quite so good. But what is a little ironic is I thought I bought 2 of this one and 1 of this one, and that's definitely that kind. I mean, they're really pretty, but not as anticipated. And I think it'll mean what I'll probably do is pop this guy somewhere new. And then I'll probably pop that guy somewhere new too, since it didn't quite do what I was intending to. And next spring, we're probably going to be moving this bridal veil spirea to another part of the garden. It's a little trickier because it's been in this spot quite some time, but it's a little too big and we would like it elsewhere. Speaking of like it elsewhere and a little bit too big, this grass will also be moved in the spring, which will give these guys a little bit more light. Hydrangeas, again, are looking a little bit chlorotic. You see it more over there. I don't know if they're just extra sensitive or what, but I'm gonna have to get that treated with iron tone, and I do apologize if the audio is not the best. The wind, which I think I talked to you about before, when you can see some color on the other side of the lake. I think I can also hear, I don't see them, but I hear someone taking a dock out. Like, oh, I think they're over there. But, so you might hear that in the background, and the wind has made it through the trees, and it's probably affecting audio. Win some, you lose some. Hopefully it's not too bad in editing. I can take most of it out. But checking in on this bed underwent quite a transformation this spring as well. We moved this coreopsis from the city garden. It's a bright yellow flower. I thought it had died. Good news, it hadn't. This we've also determined is definitely a weed, so I need to get in there and pull it out, but it might be a little while. It's actually probably going to be next spring, if I'm 100% honest. I thought it was just a different kind of a juga, which is what this is. And we're actually fairly certain now it is, in fact, a weed. This bed didn't really recover all that well from when a deer got into it. Earlier this year, a deer came in and ate all the dahlias back. There's one bloom that we'll go check out, but in general, they didn't really recover. There was one sea glitter holly that recovered there, and there was another one over here, but I'm not seeing it. And it was the second or third time it had been eaten back. So I suspect it is done for. But the Lucifer's tongue, Crocosmia, though flopping a tiny bit now with all the rain, took very, very well. I love the seed pods they put on in the fall. Really pretty. They're a little gothic-y in my mind, but I really enjoy them. We also had, I think I have some iris that might pop over here. We did plant this iris. It's a pretty blue one. And I have a couple more varieties that I thought we could stick under this tree. This ajuga is entirely new. We planted it all last year from 3 little packs. Took quite well. And this little quickfire, similar, another one that we planted, did get eaten back by deer, but it also made a recovery. Here's the dahlias that I wanted to show you that did manage to survive. And look at that guy. I actually think that's a seed dahlia, a really pretty red one that I was bummed to be missing. So I'm glad it made it. And there's a pink one that's just starting there. But I do want to give you a close-up look to those dahlias. These were just so beautiful. As we pass, we'll appreciate the bamboo that still hasn't been touched, but it will be. So this bed we spent a lot of time on last fall, and it has just come on leaps and bounds. I missed because I was gone when they were flowering the hibiscus, but they were beautiful, and I'm really annoyed that none of these are open. It's called Mercury. You can see it's like yellow with a lot of red and tangerine streaks. This one is a little bit smaller than I thought it would be. It's called Patches though. He's actually more usable. He was, I think, labeled dinner plate. And he probably is. He's just a smaller dinner plate. I'd say he's like maybe 4-ish inches. But he's got great color. The Russian sage, these are the same denim and lace. And they look a little meh. So maybe there was a cooler night that nipped them. This one is a dinner plate dahlia. I'd probably go as far as to say it's a cafe au lait. Look at them. Aren't they beautiful? And I love actually the color of the bloom with the leaves on this hibiscus. This is like a midnight something hibiscus, which is really pretty. Oh, another one. This was a Randy Dawn dinner plate dahlia. It's interesting to see the difference between like this with more rounded, more pink tones, and this one, which is like more twisted and more peachy if you look closer. Peachy tones. There might actually be another type in here as well. Look at this. I'll have to double check if there's one or two, because I know there was in one space that I planted a couple and it might have been this one. Because look at this guy. He's definitely different and beautiful. I'm heavy right now with all the rain. Gorgeous. What else? I don't know if I want to get in here, but this was a mystery dahlia. That's a really pretty light pom-pom. And then we have this one was labeled Bridal Veil. It's not. It's a seed dahlia. I'll do a better job of labeling them. It is a really pretty one that I actually think this is a good spot for because it gets quite tall. This is probably a little shorter because it doesn't get quite as much sun on this end, but they still clearly like it. We had a romantic mix. This one is a more purple color. I'm actually super excited to see it because I did a really bad job of labeling dahlias this year. More accurately, I did a really bad job of labeling dahlias last year, which meant when it came time to plant them this year, I didn't know what was being planted where. I hopefully have a better method this year, which involves actually writing on tubers directly. And we'll see, because I do want the bigger dahlias to come here, because my mom loves dinner plate dahlias, and I do too, but they can't really be used in a lot of bouquets, and they're much better used in the garden. And so we've left some pockets for them here for her to enjoy. A lot of these that I thought the tuber hadn't survived, I'm so happy to see that it did indeed survive. This is supposed to be a newer bloom. It's more purpley. And then it fades a bit, but the undersides really maintain a color that's more pinky. So that's pretty. And it also sets off this hydrangea, which is called Froggy. It's my favorite hydrangea. I'm on the lookout one for my new house because I now am a zone 6B versus 5B. And I can grow this because this is a zone 6. So that's really exciting to me. I can't steal this one because it is my mom's favorite as well, but look at this fall color. Is that not gorgeous? Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I need to remember to put some winter protection around it because it did have some winter burn. And I think it blooms on old wood. I can't quite recall. I took a number of things from the city garden. Most of them are going to my new home garden. But a number of them where I could get more than one division, or I knew my mom and dad would really appreciate them, have made their way up here to be appreciated. Let's see. I just was trying to see if there's not a lot interesting in this bed. It's the same that it's been all year because we haven't touched it. But one thing that is interesting is the bed around the maple tree near the water. We really struggled to plant stuff in this bed. I think, long story short, we've determined that it's going to have to be annuals. And we might as well be snapdragons because I think they'll probably do the best. So I'm just going to try and remember to start enough for this bed. Though I missed them blooming. These are like a black currant or blackberry lily. I can't remember which one it is, but it's one of the two that we actually have all the way up there. And it's made its way down here in the wonder of plants. So it's here. There's a couple bits. There's one over here. We're just going to let it go and really appreciate it for all it is. You'll see some of the zinnias took and weren't bothered. Some were eaten, like this sad little stick. Some things in here are indeed weeds. We thought they were snapdragons and they're not. Like, this is a weed. I don't know what weed, probably a vetch of some kind, but it is unfortunately quite established, so I'm going to dig it out. Same over there, that's going to be dug out. And there are a couple foxglove that survived, but not all that many if we're being honest. So I think, as I said, this is just going to become a beautiful little snapdragon home. The vegetable garden, guys, is petering out a bit, but there is still a lot of beauty in it. I actually haven't been down here in a little bit, probably too long, but check out our Gala apple tree. So they're a little smaller than they should be, and some of them have spots. I think this one was affected by something. This one got eaten by or pecked by something, but there are a large number that are good. And I had one the other day and it was delicious. So I was super excited about it. We need to come and pick them. We've kind of just been eating them for snacks as needed. We probably need to dip in this a little bit more. But it's so hard. And we'll pick these and it'll do well. It's been in here a year, though it was quite an old tree when we planted it. So we left probably more than we should. I did harvest my first cabbage the other day. I made it for dinner. It also was delicious. Didn't have any rotting in it, which I was worried about. I know I talked about that in another video. So we're just kind of picking them as we need them. There'll probably come a point soon if it gets cold. Ooh, that's a good size zucchini. I think we've gotten hardly any zucchinis off this plant this year. The nectarines, they were doing so well. We were so excited about them. And right around the same time that all the tomatoes started coming on, the birds attacked. There's some remnants of it. We had to buy a lot of bird, netting. They destroyed a large number of tomatoes and every single nectarine on this tree. But it's always next year. And now we know we're going to do a better job and probably net it or figure out some kind of netting. We were thinking that we'll put like poles up or something and try and keep them out that way. We did end up resorting to putting up an owl. Unfortunately, this is actually a purple martin house that we have a colony of martins that have been coming here for years, and the owl scared them away, which we didn't really intend to do, but was an unfortunate side effect. I did come in the other day, since the nights are getting colder. These might already be too late. You can see here's one that survived a pecking, but has a lot of scarring. I did come in and chop off all the tops of the tomatoes, hoping to encourage the fruit that was left on it to ripen. And so some of them that weren't ripe the other day are now perfect. And of course I didn't bring a basket down, so I might pick these and come back down later for them. Yes, they again are perfect. I need to make some sauce with them. But this has been such a fun little project. I'm kind of bummed that I didn't get to see it in its full glory this year, because I was traveling myself to England to visit my grandpa and celebrate his birthday. It's still been a lot of fun. I know my mom has loved it. My dad has enjoyed it. The tomatoes have been amazing. We learned some lessons, like we don't want to plant tomatoes and peppers in the same bed because the peppers need... Oh, it's raining again. And I'm so far from the house. I think it's just this cloud. We're going to power through. The peppers need a lot less water than the tomatoes do. And it was very difficult to keep them both happy in the setup we had. So we're not going to do that again. I actually don't know how many peppers realistically my parents need. Okay, maybe I'll go sit I'm going to go pop in the boathouse for just a second. Welcome inside the boathouse. I really think it's just this one cloud. And the way the wind's blowing, I'm hoping it'll blow up. Anyway, as I was saying, I really wish I could spend more time in the vegetable garden this year. I'm going to enjoy it thoroughly next year. My parents have intended to build some different beds that were taller, and I think they'll still build those, but I wouldn't be surprised if it takes one more year for them to do that. I think what we might do next year is keep some of these and then build a couple taller ones for like beans and cabbages up off the ground, as they also get a chance to figure out what they want to grow and what they don't want to grow. Next year, I will not have a vegetable garden. I have 4 like mini troughs that used to be on my driveway at the old house. And we moved them obviously before I sold, because I don't know how many people want like squash trellis and horse troughs on their driveway to grow vegetables. Didn't seem very marketable, but those will go to my house and I will plant some things in them. But that's probably going to be the extent of my vegetable garden this year. And there is a good amount of yard space, but not a ton of sun. And I'm limited by where my septic field is at the new house. So all that to say, I'm going to live with it a year before I decide if where I'm thinking the vegetable garden goes is definitely where it's going to live full term. So this is going to be the main vegetable garden for our family for at least a year, because I used to grow all the vegetables while my parents were doing other things. And while they enjoyed it, I think it'll just be smaller amounts this year. This is, I think, a good amount of garden space for them, and they just need to decide what their priorities are in terms of plants. This year, my mom, I think, would want more tomatoes, probably less cherry tomatoes, which are one of my favorite things, and more beans. We haven't harvested carrots yet, so I don't know how she feels about the carrots, but I will report back. Oof. This is the upper lake, and that's the lower lake. Those are the narrows. And that is rain. Okay, once again, that cloud did clear up, but I think it's going to start raining at any moment, which means I think I'm going to put on hold my planting plans. I might check the radar real quick, but that does mean it is the end of this video. I know that fall sometimes there's not a ton of things going on, that especially before the fall interest really kicks in, because even though things like this little quick fire hydrangea standard has its beautiful fall color and the trees are just beginning, I do feel like this late summer, well, this is fall, early fall is something that we need to up our interest. Things start looking tattered at that time, so I think it mostly comes in leaf color. And what this has revealed to me is that we need to add some more plants with fall color elsewhere in the yard for added interest. Someone's blowing leaves. And it's also shown me that there have indeed been some cooler nights. We have not had a frost yet, but considering today is like barely above 50 and feels like it's less than 50 with the breeze, my guess is we're dipping into the low 40s or high 30s some nights. I'll have to pay closer attention to all of those things and definitely start bringing in produce more. I actually, before I walked up the hill, went and picked a whole mess of tomatoes that were ready. I think I started mentioning, I don't know if I finished, that I had actually come through, I didn't film this, maybe I should have, and cut off the tops of all the tomato plants so it would stop putting energy into new leaves and new blossoms and focus on the fruit that were already there. I also took some off that were never going to get ripe. So hoping for the things that I left on the vine, they would have the best chance at developing and us still being able to eat them. I did check tonight, there's no frost. And actually it's supposed to warm up a tiny bit the next couple days. I think it's just mostly rainy and cool. So the cabbage and the carrots and all that stuff are fine, and the apples. We have a little more time to get them harvested before it is super important that they come in. As I said, I think this is where we're going to leave this video. I hope you enjoyed walking through the cottage garden with me early October. There might be a late October tour. because there is some beautiful fall color and interest that, as you saw the beginnings of it, I'd like to show it to you when it's a little bit later. There's a couple trees that have colored up, but we have some beautiful fall interest trees, and none of them had started even one leaf turning. So there's probably going to be one more garden tour yet this year in the cottage garden, where I share the fall color with you. And as I mentioned, probably along the way identify areas that we could add some more fall interest. I guess that's a question for you guys. What is your favorite fall interest piece, other than like mums or things like that? What's your favorite pop in the garden late September and early October? I'd love to hear more and get other ideas of interesting things we can add to this garden so we have an all seasons interest garden. I really appreciate you joining me today. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe so you can follow along with this garden's journey here at the cottage, as well as our new home garden too. We did tour that in a recent video. It was actually filmed like a week and a half before this one, even though I think it might be the one you see directly before this. So I'll link that here in case you missed it. Again, I really appreciate you joining me today, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.